Snow The Goalie. We are live at Chickie's and Pete's in Bordentown on a balmy day out there. Bill Meltzer's here.
Yes. What happened to our nice weather yesterday?
It was like, it touched, I was up in New York for a few days.
Yeah.
It touched like 74 degrees there 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I was walking around with, the short sleeves on, showing off, some
sure.
gains
Showing off
there,
the guns.
Bill.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then yesterday it kind of came down a little bit. It got a little bit rainy at night. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sad. Woke up this morning and I saw, the temperature just keeps going down and down and down.
And now it's snowing.
Wintry mix.
Yeah.
What is it? What were we just coming out of? We call it like the fourth spring of deception or whatever. And here we are again. Like at some point, it has to actually become fall, right?
You would think, right? You would think.
At some point.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, maybe it's just a sign, right? The Flyers season is not yet over, right? So that cold weather has to just kind of hang
Hockey
in here with us.
hanging in. Yeah.
It's that last gasp, right? The Flyers are in the midst of also their own sort of last gasp here.
Last throes of hockey season. Yeah.
I've been told 8 games remaining at home for the Flyers. Not that anyone's counting. 8 opportunities yet to go out and get your tickets and come on out and see the future of the orange and black.
8 at home, 10 on the road. Yep.
So you might be, if you're checking in over on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and you're like, hey, this is a different looking crew from normal. We had to move the show because I was up in New York for work. Ant is down on location at spring training for his job. And then Bundy was committed to
an alumni
event tonight. So we did a little bit of, configuring here. So we're appreciative to the fine folks, Chickies and Pete's, for having us out on a Thursday.
Absolutely.
And when I said to myself, what do we do? How do we make sure we have a highly informative and entertaining show? I said, Bill Meltzer's the way to go. The oracle of Flyers knowledge.
You settled on me.
Settled. Come on now. But Bill, there are a lot of things to get into. Flyers coming off a very spirited effort that ends with one of my favorite, I think one of your favorite guys to watch, in Nikita Grabenkin at the end of the game, kind of trolling the opposition. It's a nice bounce back after a total drubbing by a Rangers team that not only won that game, and then I was at the Rangers Flames game at MSG the following night. All of a sudden the Rangers, caught a little bit of fire there. But a nice bounce back win. And there are some positives, I think, that we can take away from that game, and maybe you project that out on the rest of the season as well.
No, for sure. No, I mean, realistically, the Flyers are in spoiler territory at this point. They're not mathematically eliminated, right? But particularly that drubbing by the Rangers on a night when every other team that you're chasing got points. It's not mathematically fatal, but pretty close. But but definitely, there's definitely things you can take away from that game. A, in the way that they play, but B, also you had the guys that you need to stepped up for you. Konechny couldn't have had a better 29th birthday present.
Yep.
He stepped up big for the team. Zegras looks like he's poised to finish strong because he had a little bit of a lull there for a while, but so it was a good thing. And Sam Ersson desperately needed a quality start to maybe take a little bit of the edge off him, a little bit of pressure. So, wherever you finished, you want to finish as strong as you can. So, there are things you can take from it beyond just the one game.
Ersson's an interesting guy, and we're obviously not going to spend a lot of time on Sam. No offense to Sam Ersson, but he's not a guy that you're focusing a lot on. But that's a guy who is an RFA coming up, right? That's a guy who I cannot think there's a conceivable way that he's back here next year. That's a guy who is ultimately trying to play for a contract to try to play for someone out there.
Yeah.
I mean, is he one of those guys that you say, hey, if there's a player on the team who needs to have a strong finish, he's certainly up there.
He's certainly one of them. Well, if you remember a year ago, Jacob Pelletier had a great finish to the season.
Yep.
He was on the line with Paling at that time, and that line actually finished strong. Now, neither guy came back. They didn't even qualify. Pelletier, who's tearing up the AHL, but hasn't really stuck at the AHL this year. But guys like that have an incentive to finish strong.
Yep.
Just playing for their future. So like a guy like Ersson, and they have a few more back-to-backs still left, so he's going to get some starts anyway.
Yep.
So that's the kind of player that I think once you make your decision that you're not bringing him back, you don't alter that plan.
Yeah.
But the thing with Sam is I've always thought he's an NHL goalie, but he's never stayed healthy enough. He's never sustained it long enough.
Correct.
And then at a certain point, for your own future, but also with the players' benefit, you just move on, let him get a fresh start somewhere. But it could certainly help. And I mean, listen too, the Flyers don't really have another option in goal the rest of the season.
Yeah.
The only way that Kolosov will come in, I mentioned actually with intern Andrew yesterday, what are the chances that he gets another start or two? Well, just given the fact how often Sam gets hurt, it's not a zero chance.
Correct.
But but it would be a good thing for the team, and have they play in front of them too, because you want to set some positive things to maybe take into the offseason.
That is an interesting name, by the way, though, Kolosov, because I think obviously just given on where this team is at, what they might want to try to do in the offseason, you don't envision a scenario where they're going to like take pieces away and take this thing down further.
Yeah.
There is a certain risk if you were to say, hey, we're going to allow Kolosov to compete for the backup spot next year. And at the same time, I don't know if it's exactly advisable to go out and like go and get another, veteran backup guy. It's not that they think Bjarnason will be ready next year.
Well,
they think they're probably looking at least 2 years out. But Kolosov's kind of done the good soldier thing with the Phantoms this year.
This year, he didn't do that last year. Yeah.
This year, he's kind of done the good soldier thing. Yeah. You do have to imagine that they'll want Bjarnason to kind of take the reins in Lehigh Valley next year.
Yeah.
To me, like it's not a terrible idea. But if they are trying to be this, playoff team next year, it is a pretty big risk to go into next year with Kolosov as your backup, I would imagine.
For sure. And the way the nature of the beast in the NHL these days, especially, look at all the goalie injuries that are out. You really need 3 goalies. Yep. You need your 1B or your backup. And you also need your AHL guy, preferably with some NHL experience, who could come up and give you a few starts. Now, with Kolosov, though, I don't think he had some kind of an epiphany where he said, no, you know what? I mean, it was really more, as you said, being the good soldier, because he still views himself as an NHL goalie.
Yeah.
I think if it's the proposition of another year of being with the Phantoms and trying to work his way up, but I don't see an NHL team that would actually want to give him that shot at this point. He hasn't earned it. So I think the most likely situation is he's not qualified. He goes back to the KHL, and then you're trying to figure out that situation. I think they'll have to figure out 2 goalies this offseason because Bjarnason's not ready yet.
Well, I guess the question too is like there are always teams that are desperate. There are always teams that are willing to move for a guy that you wouldn't expect them to. Like I'm not surprised that the deadline came and went without the Flyers moving one of the goalies. But like Edmonton is such a team that is in such desperate need where it's almost like they need divine intervention at this point to find anybody with a pulse who could be better than what Jari has been so far.
Jari or Pickard.
Yeah. And previously, I don't think Skinner's like the worst goalie in the league, right? But like he certainly was not up to snuff.
Yeah, you're not winning any cups with them. Yeah, that's for sure.
So there was always part of me that kind of wondered, like, if Ersson had a decent stretch at some point this season, is that a guy? But I think it's out. That's coming. That's coming past. Yeah. So, hey, we had a question over here from Allison over on YouTube who asks, "Are you going to go back to Texas for Hockey in Houston Day?"
Yeah, Hockey Day in Houston, great, fantastic event. Actually, it was a guy by the name of Lance Rosenberg, who used to work for the Flyers for a number of years. Remember Michel Petit? He was on the Flyers team that lost to Detroit in the finals in '97. He's one of the organizers there. He runs a lot of hockey programs in Houston. And actually, Jeff Smith, who played with the Phantoms. So there's like a Philly connection to it. I'm going to try to get back there. It really depends on the Flyers schedule and if I can arrange the trip there to get there and come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to get into all of the fun Flyers topics, of which I think that there are some. And the name of the episode today is Loosening Up, because I kind of feel like there may be just a little shred of hope out there that young Rick Tocchet has looked around.
Yeah.
He's kind of taken a moment to look around at his team, and he's had this epiphany with like 18, 19 games to go. I wonder if Trevor Zegras can play center. I wonder if Matvei Michkov can play on the right.
Well, yeah.
I want to get there in a minute.
Okay.
But before I do, there's a question that got asked over on YouTube, and it is something that I wanted to get to, and I think it'd be kind of a little bit of fun because I want people to kind of weigh in on it throughout the show.
Sure.
Nick Abe says, surely there's a number one center in free agency, right? And the short answer, which everyone I think is very well aware of, is there are no good free agents of any kind in unrestricted free agency.
Especially centers.
It is horrific. And even this draft is not being touted as one that has a generational center, a very like a cornerstone center. You're looking at like somebody who maybe has top 6 potential.
Sure.
Kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
However, we started talking about this on Monday over on the Press Row show. I want to pick up on it. There are 3 centers who are going to be available in restricted free agency for as long as this show has been going on. I think this is like the 8th or 9th year of us doing the show. I spent the first 6 years like a happy puppy, right? And anytime an RFA would come up, I yip and bark, and I wanted to chase the squeaky toy.
Offer sheet,
and I love the idea of an offer sheet. But the front office executives in hockey, people joke it's the old boys club, but like there is a certain level of like pettiness and almost like middle school drama to these guys that if you work within the CBA, if you work within the parameters of free agency, if you have the audacity to offer sheet a player, that executive is going to be blacklisted by many of the other teams.
Ask Homer. Yeah.
But there are 3 centers, any of which would be the number one center on this team.
Yeah, and there's an avenue to doing it without an offer sheet. Now it's going to involve a trade.
Yeah.
Right. You would hope, just for the Flyers' benefit, that the teams are loggerheads with the negotiations to re-sign the restricted free agent, and they're, they're thinking, it's more year, the term, the cap hit, whatever it is, that they're not coming to an agreement, and so they figure, okay, rather than dealing with the holdout kind of situation, maybe we should deal them.
Yeah.
But that, unfortunately, though, a little bit of that is letting other teams dictate your fate.
Sure.
You have to be proactive on these things. I mean, the Flyers definitely need to do something. In my view, when you look around the system that they have, there really should not be sacred cows in there. Now, I'm certainly not anxious to trade Marteau. I'm not anxious to trade Michkov or whatever.
Yeah.
But but ultimately, though, I think anything should be negotiable. Sure. I don't think there should be any absolute no's. It just depends on what the composition of a trade would be. So, but I think you absolutely have to go and get that center.
Yeah.
And look at what Celebrini has done this year. Celebrini, at his tender age, he's 19. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a superstar.
Yep.
He's a superstar,
a bona fide superstar that all of that Olympic team.
Yeah.
They gush about.
And
at the same time, it's almost like they're trying to manage expectations, right? Like they don't want to go all the way in.
Yeah,
on putting the league on his shoulders, but it certainly feels like he's gotten that level of respect.
Yeah,
from his peers. So. He also was. He came out in a draft that I don't know if you remember what happened that year, Bill.
I seem to recall. Yes, if you want to refresh people's memory, but I remember.
Was that the year that Couturier got benched? That was the galvanize the team by Tortorella that didn't work, and then the Flyers didn't end up picking very high in that draft, and they didn't. Yeah, and
that was the beginning of the end.
They ended up with a young guy. Jet, I believe is his name.
And
Mr. Lachenko.
And the guy that they bypassed, because Hellenius might be actually out there available by trade this summer.
Yeah.
At least by pundit consensus, Hellenius was the center in that range.
Correct.
And the Flyers, I know there were other teams that are interested in Lachenko, but I think more people like Hellenius.
Yep.
Now, do you have a chance of someone to maybe undo that? He's still a very good prospect.
Sure.
Is he going to be a franchise center? Probably not. Is he going to be a true first center? Maybe not. And more likely not. But is he going to be a top 6? Probably so at some point. So they don't have those. I think they have a lot of third-line centers in the system.
And that's the problem, right? And that's kind of where you come back to. The thing, if you're going to do a rebuild, and if you're going to do a rebuild the right way, you have to come out of it with at least a top center, or a number one defenseman.
Yeah.
If you come out of a rebuild and you have neither, to me, it's not a rebuild. In essence, it's not even a rebuild. You can't even call it a rebuild until you get one of those two.
It has a one or the other.
Yeah.
Few teams have both, but you have to at least one of the two.
And as of right now, they don't have that.
They don't.
And I know that there are some people who are like, oh, Oliver Bonk, really good prospect. Is he going to be a number one defenseman? Probably not.
Probably not.
Is he going to be a top pair defenseman? I don't know.
Maybe not. I think top 4 is fair.
Sure.
And even top 3 is reasonable. Is he a top? I mean, also, except for the bona fide number 1, what's the number 2, right?
Yeah.
It's a guy who fits well with his partner. I mean, Bundy was a very good NHL player. Was he a potential casting number 2 defenseman? Maybe not, but he fit perfectly with Rico. He fit perfectly with Rico.
Yep.
So, or Matt Carl with Chris Pronger. They fit well together. So that was by default. Even though Kimmo Timonen was really your number 2 defenseman, the guy playing with Pronger was Matt Carl. So if you have that number 1 and you have that guy who can play with them, and that's another way you can say you have a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
But you need to have the number 1. Period.
So I want to take a look at restricted free agents.
Let's do it.
Because that's where I think a lot of the fun actually comes into play. And I want people to get to warm up. I want to warm the cockles of everyone's hearts today on this dreary and wintry mixed kind of day. But before we can tell you about all the great guys who could theoretically come here on an offer sheet this summer, we want to thank the fine folks at Chickies and Pete's because, of course, we're here at Chickies and Pete's in Bordentown, New Jersey. We got Bill Meltzer. We got Chris on the ones and twos. We got intern Andrew looking like a stud. Nice smile over here. We're at Chickies and Pete's. We've done this all season. Every Wednesday, typically, with the exception of a couple of Saturdays and a Thursday tonight. We usually are here on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock at a rotating host of Chickies and Pete's locations. There are 17 in the greater Philadelphia area. I'm going to see if I can do a rundown of all the different ones we've been to so far this year. Of course, Bordentown, Glassboro. We've been out to Warrington. We've been to Parks Casino in Bensalem. We've gone out to Malvern, Northeast Philly, Drexel Hill. We've been all over.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, I think next week we are actually at Northeast Philly. I'm going to double check that. I think we are at Northeast Philly next week. But whether it's a Wednesday and you want to come out and talk some puck, maybe it's a Monday and you decide you want to go watch baseball. I don't know why you would, but maybe you do. Chickies and Pete's is the place to go. You want to see if you can find Anthony SanFilippo in the crowd or in the press box. Bryce, I still believe you're elite. If you want to do that, you can come down to Chickies and Pete's. There is no better place in the Delaware Valley, right? There's no place in the greater Philadelphia area that's better to go and watch a game than Chickies and Pete's. And of course, you could do one of a million different things with the menu, right? You could pull a Bundy. You can go clam chowder, a full pizza, and 12, peel and eat shrimp. I typically join them on the shrimp. Grilled chicken sandwich.
Very good.
You went clam chowder tonight.
Yes, I did.
You did part of the Bundy.
I did a partial Bundy. Yes.
You're on your way. whatever the Gordie Howe hat trick is of the Chickies and Pete's menu, probably the Bundy.
Yeah.
You're 1/3 of the way
there.
there.
Okay. Well, it gives you something to aspire to.
I believe in you.
There we go.
But come on out. You can try any of the things that we talked about. You can get a crab cake sandwich. You can always get the mussels. There's a lot of great stuff out here. Anthony's been getting, I think it was called the tailgate burgers, the one that's a crab cake on top of a burger.
Yeah.
And if Anthony likes it,
Nachos are good here too. I haven't tried them here, but Chickies Pizza is really good nachos too.
And if you're one of the people out there, and you know who you are, Catholics, on Fridays who have to avoid the meat, well, don't worry. Yeah. Crab cake sandwiches, fish tacos. Okay. Great stuff out here at Chickies and Pete's. All right.
No doubt.
So look, I just made some dates. There's going to be at least a couple of date nights going down tomorrow at Chickies and Pete's, just because of the recommendations.
Yeah.
Love is in the air. Love is in the air at Chickies and Pete's. So come on out to one of their 17 locations in the greater Philadelphia area. A big thank you to Chickies and Pete's for hosting us tonight and the entire hockey season. All right, let's get into the fun. I want to play a fun game. Okay. Are the Flyers insane enough to do this? There are 3 centers that are restricted free agents this year. One of them, franchise-altering, generational, I would argue, incredibly unlikely it happens. But there is one out there.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 guys who I would say are different level of very good. I think would be hard to justify the offer it would take in order to get one of them here. I think it would be an overpay. But either of whom would be the number 1 center on this team. So I don't know which way you want to go first. I kind of want to go with the pie in the sky because I think it's a lot of fun to think about.
Yeah.
So in order for you to go after a restricted free agent, you effectively have to work as an organization with the player's agent in the offseason. Come up with what does a contract look like in terms of term and money that is of such an exorbitant amount that the team you're trying to poach that player from could not match it.
Yeah.
Right. And in the event that that team can match it, well, then guess what? As the agent, you've done a great job because now you've used leverage
it's a
to
win-win.
get your
It's
client
a win-win for them. Yeah.
a fantastic deal.
Yeah.
With the cap going up, knowing just how rough it's been out there for centers, we knew it going into the trade deadline. Centers were not going to be available. This is a big reason that the Flyers opted to re-sign Christian Dvorak instead of letting it get to the trade market and then having to, I don't know, somehow find a center in free agency this year to fill that role. The number one guy is Connor Bedard. There's virtually no chance it happens.
No chance. After Chicago tanked to get him. Yeah. And funny, it's funny that they won by winning because if you remember, they did not finish the worst record that year because of a couple of late season wins, but they won the lottery anyway. So had they been, had the top odds, actually they wouldn't have won the lottery. Funny how that worked out, but no.
I hear Anthony SanFilippo somewhere down in Florida right now. Say, Russ, you don't have to get the worst record in hockey. You can. Yeah,
you don't.
Yeah. Now, here's what it would take though, because this would be the case for Bedard or the other two guys that we'll touch on.
Yeah.
If you offer a guy anywhere between $9.3 million and $11.7 million, and that player accepts the deal, and their team refuses to meet that asking price. You, if you're the Flyers, would have to give up 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. You don't care about the second and the third.
Yeah.
It really is. Do you think this guy's worth 2 first-round picks and somewhere around probably right at that $11.7 million mark?
Right.
Well, if you're going to be insane and try to make the Bedard push, that ain't getting it done. So then you look at the top version of this, and that's where it hurts.
Yeah.
4 first-round picks,
yeah.
And that's for a salary in excess of $11.7 million. Right. Now, if I remember correctly, the highest salary you can offer is 20% or 25
of the cap. Yeah.
Of the cap.
Yeah.
In theory, if you are a team like the Flyers, you look around, you're honest with yourself, which, good God, you have to hope they are. You say, Jet Lachenko, Jack Nesbitt, lovely human beings, not going to be a bona fide number one franchise-altering guy. There's not one of those as a restricted free or an unrestricted free agent. There's not even one if you were to tank, which this team is, 100% against. Florida, oddly enough, maybe will, but that doesn't matter. But there's not even a guy in the draft. You don't have. If Gavin McKenna were a center, well, then maybe it's a different conversation, right? But that's not how that lines up. If you're the Flyers, do you run the risk of burning that relationship, whatever you want to call it, with Chicago by Godfather offer the max you can, put 4 first-round picks on the line, but you're doing it for a player that you are 100% certain would be a franchise-altering guy? Do you at least consider it?
I do consider it. Yeah, I think you have to consider any means. I think that, but I think that anything you offer, they're going to match. They're going to find a way to keep their guy because they put so much into Bedard as their guy.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't see a way you can get him, just realistically. Now, but do you give it the good old college try and find out is there a way we might be able to? Yeah, I would do that because I mean, you're competing with these teams.
Correct.
Ultimately, and the the CBA gives you the mechanism to do that. He didn't get everything right, but Paul Holmgren had the right philosophy where we have that ability.
Yeah.
With the CBA, use it.
That was the Shea Weber.
Shea Weber and Shea Weber at that time was the best defenseman in the NHL.
Yep.
And
was the same. Was that the same offseason that Suter was also available?
Suter was available that year.
Yeah.
That summer too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Yager walked and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Et cetera. But yeah, that was the summer of 2012. And the Flyers really did make a poison pill offer.
Yeah.
And then the way that Nashville was able to match the offer sheet was their owners had to take from their personal wealth and actually put their own money into it. So it wasn't corporate money.
Yep.
And they were cursing Homer every step of the way. But we can't lose them because if we lose our defenseman there, like no one will ever sign with us again. Our alter our franchise in general. So they matched it, even though they really couldn't afford to match it, they matched it.
Yep.
And And I think Bedard would be a similar kind of thing, where if Chicago just let him walk, figure, okay, we take the 4 first rounders, even if you're ultimately a better organization for it, I don't think they'd let him walk. Now, maybe it might be another situation with some of these other guys, but I don't think there's an avenue to get Bedard, truthfully.
You know what I think, though? And this is actually where I think teams screw up by not getting in the free agent waters, the RFA waters.
Yeah.
I think it's also different if you're in the same conference, because then you are more actively competing, right?
Yeah.
Say if you are a San Jose or if you're in Anaheim, right? I'm not looking at their cap situations right now, but like, let's just say hypothetically you go, hey, in this Western Conference, window-wise, right, you'd expect a San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago. They're all kind of in that
Younger
same
teams,
sort of window.
Yeah.
If you're them, and if the cap is there, again, I did not look at their cap situations right now. Just humor me. I'm looking at it going, well, on one hand, I get this awesome player in Connor Bedard if they don't match. And if they don't, I've just poison pilled. Was it 20%?
20% of your cap.
I've just taken a fifth of their cap.
Yes.
And I've blown that up.
On one player.
On one player. And from a strategic standpoint, when you look at it, I mean, look at Toronto, right? Toronto decided that they were going to tie up a good chunk of their money in three players.
Centers. Right.
In
three players. All centers or all forwards.
And it did not work.
Yeah.
And that whole thing is, taking a dive.
Yeah.
From a strategic standpoint, like, to me, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Like, why would you not at least try it?
No, for sure. Now, of course, there are other parts of it too. If you have prospects that are an ilk, where they might be central pieces for your team, that's a way of doing it. You could tie up 20% in one player and then, find other means. I mean, it requires a little bit of luck in development. I mean, look at how Tampa Bay built, right? Of course, Stamkos and Hedman, the guys they built around. But Braden Point was not a first-round pick, right? Kucherov's not a first-round pick, but they turned out to be superstars. Like, you need a little bit of luck that way along the line, and strike while the iron's hot when these guys are still young and they're not making a lot of money, but they're playing at an elite level. But the Flyers don't have that player in their system, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, so Bedard's off the table.
Yeah,
it would be great though.
It sure
Can
would.
you imagine? Imagine? Just take a moment.
It would be fun. Imagine
having that level of player.
Yeah.
All right, so he's off the table. So then that leaves you with 2 other guys. And we could just wink, nod, nudge, nudge. Note that Cutter Gauthier has taken like 66 faceoffs in the past month, and he's winning at a 61% clip. And I think you even mentioned to me before the show that there had been some thoughts out there.
He was a center in college.
That maybe
he was drafted as a winger. He played center in college. Yeah.
That maybe there could be a look at center there. He'll be an RFA at the end of the year too. I don't know.
Well, there you go.
I'll tell you
there's a natural fit, boy.
Cutter Gauthier. Hey, you don't want to play for Torts before, hey? How about Rick Tocchet?
Hey, he's gone.
I don't ever hear about it. Rick Tocchet. He's been great with his things that he says about his young players publicly. It's awesome. What could possibly go wrong? He's probably off the table too. So then you're left with 2 others, right? You're left with Leo Carlson, and you're left with Fantilli.
Yeah.
Do either of those guys move the needle enough that you say it's still worth, in that case, overpaying, giving up 4 firsts? Because you're going to have to go above 11.7 million to get one of those guys.
Yeah.
Do you look at it and say, just given on where this team is drafted, given on the idea that they don't want to be a lottery team, they're probably looking at it as, like, in their minds, mid to late or mid 20s, right? Is where they want to be. Do you look at that and say, all right, it might be an overpay, but that changes the trajectory of the team if you go after a Fantilli or a Carlson?
I think you have to be proactive again. That kind of a player, even if he's not the absolute, an absolute franchise player, generational. I hate that term, but even if they're not that level, they're certainly steps above what you have coming along, and it's an absolute need. So I would consider that route. No question about it, because I think you need to do something.
Yep.
Because how else do you get that player here? As we were saying, it's, unless you could work out some kind of a trade. Now, I'm going to put out another just fun to consider scenario here. Not that, again, I don't know how realistic it is. Now, this is an older player, but Toronto, right? Austin Matthews.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Now that of course that require a blockbuster trade, and
Yeah.
and you're you might have to give it both Martone and Michkov and that kind of a deal. But boy, there's your franchise center for you, right? That's again not saying that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But there's a hell of a player there.
There is. The only concern there is based on the level of talent that you already have on the roster. If you do have to move, probably your top prospect in Martone, and then
for sure,
and then then
at least one of them.
But then you're effectively gutting some of the only real potential elite talent you have. And then Austin Matthews lands here and he looks around and goes, "What in the world have what?"
You're gonna have to deal. You got at least one of them have to be in that trade. Maybe not both. Maybe you could work away. You put Martone in it or whatever, and first round compensation and then other things too.
Yeah.
But at least you wouldn't be able to do it without at least one of them in there.
Yeah.
And my gut feeling is they would actually ask for Martone.
I think they would too.
So.
It seemed like that was also the Vancouver side of things around Quinn Hughes, is that Martone was really the
guy they really wanted.
The one.
Yeah, I think when teams look at him, they see a bona fide first line winger. They like the sandpaper part of it.
Yep.
Now he has things to work on still. To skate, he can get a little bit better. Play without the puck at the NHL level is going to have to get a little bit better. Not a ton better, but a little bit better. But I think everybody looks at him. This is a future star. I mean, it's a guy who already played in for Team Canada in the World Championships as a teenager with grown men, etc. So I think that there's a teams covet him. Not that they wouldn't want Michkov either, but it's knowing hockey people and having talked to some of them, I think Martone is the guy that they would really and you'd have to swallow hard because the Flyers don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But if if the return involves a Austin Matthews kind of a player. And again, this is all theoretical.
Sure.
I think you have to consider something like that, wouldn't you?
I think it depends on the guy. I don't know if I would do it for Matthews.
Really?
Yeah. It's tough, right? Because when you look at what happened in the Olympics, you go, Austin Matthews is so well respected by those guys that they wanted him to be the captain.
Yeah.
And yet I think, and this is probably where it's unfair. I actually want to see what Austin Matthews looks like with another team. I think that there's just an inherent stink on what has happened with the Leafs.
Being in Toronto. But
it's kind of hard to evaluate him, and is he the cornerstone guy, or is he like the star and the guy that you build around, but maybe isn't the guy who can lift all boats to that next level.
Yeah, I think absolutely a cornerstone player. As good as he is offensively, and he's an awesome offensive player, he's a really good two-way player on top of that, right? Now, you can look at what he's done in big games and that kind of thing, to the Olympics. In terms of the big game stuff, I go back to something that was a goalie thing, but go back to something that Bernie Perron once said to Pelle Lindbergh before the 85 playoffs. He said, Pelle, I never won a playoff series, so we won the cup. And people question, well, can he win the playoffs? After we won the cup, nobody ever questioned that again.
It's true.
Right? So is Matthews capable? That yeah, he is. And to me, he's more capable of it than his old running mate, Mitch Marner. Marner, I don't know if he's going to ever be a playoff guy.
Old Marner.
But I think Matthews can be that.
By the way, you'll get a kick out of this. Idle 76s. We already have our Austin Matthews with Russ. They look like they could at least be cousins.
Separated birth, perhaps.
That's right. I want to before we kind of wrap this part.
Yeah.
If you had your druthers, right? You're this front office, and if it is a choice between Carlson and Fantilli, based on the players that are on this roster that are going to be here longer term, who do you think actually would be the better fit?
I think Fantilli.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Carlson's a really good, well-rounded hockey player, and I wouldn't, be the least bit disappointed if that's your guy. But I think that Fantilli is just a little bit more that maybe take charge upside, because the Flyers really need that guy. But beyond Travis Konechny. Konechny is a guy who, at the level that he can, will take the team on the shoulders sometimes, but he's not your franchise driving player.
Yeah.
But I think Fantilli has that ability to be a guy who can put the team on his shoulders as he continues to mature. So, given the choice between the two, I would say Fantilli, but wouldn't be the least bit disappointed of either one of them.
All right, so I want everybody to come back to this in the offseason. Video guy Amadeo is going to clip this up. When the Flyers offer sheet Fantilli, we'll come back to this moment.
We will do that. We will play the clip.
That's the kind of. I'm looking to see if there are children in the building right now. I'll mask it language-wise. You're always looking for that big huevos move, right? Like you need that if you're going to be a successful front office executive in any league. There has to be that one moment where you do something so bold, so gutsy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that when you look back on it, when you look back at a team that wins a championship, you go, that was the move. And like last year, I was saying like around the draft, just because of the picks they had.
Yeah.
Roger McQueen was my guy. They ended up getting Jack Nesbitt, another big center.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like if you're looking to make one of those moves, like that's it. Move up, right? Move up again in the first round and go get your guy.
Take your swing at the fence.
And Briere did. I mean, he did for his guy. We'll see if it works out. We don't know. But that kind of move, that Fantilli move, putting four firsts on the line.
That's a homer move. It's a homer move. Like I mean, Flyers had their worst season in franchise history.
Yep.
06, 07. I lived through every bit of that. Covering the team already by that point, and it was awful. It was awful, right? So where do they go from there? Well, they went out and they signed Briere, right?
Yep.
They totally remade the team within a year. So, and the very next year, after the worst season in franchise history, they're in the conference final. And then 2 years after that, they're in the Stanley Cup final.
Yep.
And between 2008 and 2010, what do they do? Well, they go and they trade the equivalent of several first-round picks, and you get Chris Pronger, who was aging but still a franchise defenseman.
Pretty good player.
Yeah, not a bad player, but you're trading a lot of capital to be able to do that. And, of course, ultimately Pronger had the eye injury. His career ended early. Talk about a big huevos move, though, right?
Yeah.
That was, Homer was never afraid. You could say he was a little too much of a gunslinger sometimes, but never shy about taking that shot at the big move. I think there comes a point where you need to do that. I don't know that Danny's going to do that this offseason, or even that if you look at objectively, now is the right time to do it. But I'll tell you, it sure be fun.
It would be.
It sure be fun.
It's interesting, too, because when the deadline was coming around, Robert Thomas's name was out there.
Yeah.
And I kept looking at it, and for all the people that would say, like, that's the guy to go out.
Yeah.
I'd keep looking at it and saying, I think he's a really good number 2 center.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a 1.5 seed, which is okay. My question at the time was, do you look at making a move for a guy like that? And the one guy this team doesn't want to trade other than Martin and Michkov is probably Tyson Forster. But because of the glut of wings they have, if you could solidify that 2C position by, unfortunately, a good trade typically hurts both teams, right? In some way.
Yeah.
If you move a Forster, but you get a positional fit and somebody who could be your number 2 center, and then, by the way, in this offseason, you go out and you make that big swing and you get that 1C.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this roster that doesn't look that great, you make those moves, you fill those spots, and all of a sudden it goes from being a hockey purgatory team to being one that like legitimately is probably middle of the playoff picture.
No question. And once you're in, you never know. That way you can win with depth.
Yeah.
Maybe not with star power. I was talking earlier about those 80s Flyers teams. Well, other than Mark Howe, who was a Hall of Famer, and Tim Kerr career ended early, but they didn't really have Hall of Fame caliber players on that team. They didn't have superstars, again, other than Mark Howe. But but they were competing for the cup year in and year out. Yeah. And they just had the right group together. And so you can win that way. I do think the best way to do it is with a superstar that drives your team. Again, either has to be a center or a defenseman in there. And how do you go about and get that player? But you can do it with a 1C that's not an elite 1C. Robert Thomas is a solid 1C. Going all the way back, I remember watching the Ontario Hockey League, and was an upper echelon player there too. So is he a Crosby type? No. The problem with Thomas is the trade deadline this year, and why I never believed he was actually available, because St. Louis said, well, we'll listen to offers, but the only thing they really wanted to listen to was essentially offers almost along the lines of you're trading for Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
If you're, if you just totally blow us away, we'll do that. But but you're overpaying, and that's keeping in mind that it's still a very quality player. But yeah, you can win with that kind of player, and the cost is a little bit lower, at least contractually, than the McDavid types. So.
There was a report that came out, and I think it's poo-poo.
Poo-poo. Okay.
But there was a report that came out that the Flyers were actively trying to do something at the deadline, and it didn't come to fruition. There was also that rumor out there that a team had a deal done but submitted late, and a few people have tried to connect the Flyers to it. I'm also not totally convinced.
I don't think so.
That was it.
Yeah.
Do you think that they had some version of something on the table that was like truly a big move?
I think they kicked some tires on that truly big move, with an intention of revisiting it this summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think anything was actually close, but you have these kind of things tend to take a while anyway. On a much smaller scale, right? Look at the Zegras trade. That took 2 years to make that trade.
Yeah.
Finally, they were able to get a price when his value was lower. They were able to get him at a discount, essentially. But you have to keep circling back. Maybe it's not right for Philly. Maybe it's not right for the other side. And then maybe there comes a point where that is the right thing. Now, maybe this summer might be that right time. But that's what I really think was going on. They were, because you don't know unless you ask. So I do think they were asking on some big swings, and maybe they can work on something like that this summer.
Now, I'll tell you what. The Flyers did, I wouldn't say they did big business at the trade deadline. I'd say that by not moving Risto and instead moving what they did, Bobby Brink, lovely guy.
Yeah.
I'd say the Flyers weren't exactly a big business. I'd say they were a small or maybe a medium-sized business. And that's actually fitting because we're now going to go to the Payroll Service Solutions Player of the Week. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but Payroll Service Solutions is the place to go.
Absolutely. It's my shout out to Ed Roncone.
If you have a small or a medium-sized business, they're the people to reach out to. We'll give you a little bit more information on them. But you can give them a call today or tomorrow. They're also open tomorrow. You can give them a call today, 1-866-PAY-EASY. That's 1-866-PAY-EASY. So, Bill, we have to have a Player of the Week. And I don't know if I really want to look back at that Rangers game at all, right? But over this past week, who stood out the most to you?
Probably a recency bias thing. But well, first of all, how in the hell was Owen Tippett not one of the 3 stars last game? Okay?
Did Jackie Spiegel pick the stars?
Jackie did not.
Jackie did not pick the stars.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not gonna say who did it, but it was not Jackie.
Who was it?
JB is his initials.
Okay.
But at any rate, I mean this is just a whole other level. We're Tippett. Now you see why the Flyers are reluctant to move him. Why other teams want him, even though he's never had that 30-goal season. Still probably won't have it this year. So it's 9 to go. Not enough games probably to get there. But boy, that's just his teammates couldn't stop talking about after the game either. Just on that level, again, it's recency bias, but I'm going to Tippett.
Intern, who did you have?
Drysdale
was
my other choice. Yeah,
I was kind of thinking.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking Drysdale.
Yeah.
That's super recency bias because of last night. But when I think about a guy, and it's not that I don't want to give it to Owen Tippett. Tippett's played significantly better. He's playing more of that power forward guy. He doesn't look like the guy who doesn't know how to hit the brakes, right? Yeah. So we've gotten past the Mighty Ducks reference this season.
No,
but Drysdale to me, in the midst of a season where everyone is looking at what Cutter Gauthier is doing in Anaheim.
Yes.
Drysdale's not like getting on the ice every day thinking about, not the comparisons. Yeah. But for a guy that has I think he took a step forward at the end of last season with Bradshaw.
Agreed.
This season, he has looked so much better, even as an even strength player, than I think the Flyers ever expected to get. And now it does feel like he's finding that confidence.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of how the last, 18 games, 17 games left.
Yeah.
Regardless of how they play out, if he finishes the season healthy, which is a big thing, and confident, that to me is like a springboard into next year.
I agree. He's, his offensive game is taking a jump, especially since the Olympic break. He's, he's playing with the way he's jumping into plays, even his play without the puck defensively.
Yeah,
the very quick defensive stick now. The way he uses his feet, just Jeff. He's not. The wheels aren't turning his head; he's just reacting. And he was the other guy I was considering for that. And I'll tell you, when you have the and the players choose it. But when you have the Pelle Lindbergh Trophy this year, I think he should easily win it.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
All right. So we didn't have a unanimous choice here tonight, but I think it was 2-1. I think we have to honor that. I think
split decision.
Yeah. We can go split decision.
All right.
And the people in the comments can ultimately reward it. But right now we're between Tippett. We'll give it Co. Let's say Co-players of the week this week.
One offense, one
Owen Tippett and Jamie Drysdale. Congratulations, gentlemen. You have been named the Payroll Service Solutions Players of the Week. And give them a call. Like we said a little bit earlier, give them a call today at 1-866-PAY-EASY. Again, that's 1-866-PAY-EASY. Payroll Service Solutions for the small and medium-sized business. They'll handle all of your payroll needs. Give them a call today, again, at 1-866-PAY-EASY. And Bill, I always say, if you have a large business, maybe they can help you break it into a couple of small and medium businesses, and they can help them. They can help out there too. But
they're awesome. They're awesome.
They focus on the small and the medium-sized business. So give them a call today. All right, now I named this episode "Loosening Up" because I had this whole idea, this whole line of thinking of what we talk about. And as is the case, if I'm running point on something, we get to it with about 10 minutes left in the show. So good job to the guy with the 5 head. I want to get to this idea of what Tocchet is starting to do. And I think Drysdale, to some extent, is part of this.
Yeah.
But really, it's a Zegras, a Michkov, and I'd even argue Grabenkin is probably part of this as well. Early in the season, you're seeing Michkov get moved from right wing, where he's always played, the left wing. You're seeing Zegras, who wanted the opportunity to play center, not really get that look. I mean, it happened sparingly at times earlier in the season, but now he's been getting a little bit more of a look at center. And then you have a guy like Grabenkin, who early in the season made the team out of camp, surprised a lot of people, but then the play was not consistent. He'd be in the lineup, he'd be out for 2 or 3 games, and he's back in. And in the midst of this rebuilding season, you're like, hey, this is the time to tinker, right? This is the time you should have a Grabenkin in the lineup. You should maybe see what you have. Can you build off of what Michkov did last year on the right? Can you turn Zegras into a center? Well, 18 games or so left. Rick Tocchet, in that lovely goateed head of his, finally has decided to appease the people. Of those 3 guys, who do you think is most likely to stick at their current role for the rest of the year? Zegras at center, Grabenkin as like an every night kind of fixture in this lineup, Michkov on the right wing.
I think Michkov stays on the right side the rest of this year.
Okay.
We'll see beyond that. It's a whole discussion as to why he was moved to the left side to begin with. I know Anna's touched on that. There are reasons for it. I understand those reasons. Ultimately, I do think if it really helps the player, if he's that much more comfortable on the right side, you know what? That's something you give on. Like there are drawbacks to him on the right, and so in a perfect world, he would adapt like that to the left side, especially because the Flyers are a little overloaded on the right. But given what his upside is and his importance to the organization, keep him on the right the rest of this year and kind of see where that goes from there.
On that point,
yeah.
I'm not saying that it's like insane or anything that, Bobby Brink being moved is the thing that got Michkov back in there. But it is a little bit maddening that a guy that's as important to your team, short-term, long-term, where he was drafted at, the GM and the president went to the airport to pick him up, like optically very big part of the future.
Yeah.
Like really, it took Bobby Brink, lovely player. It took Bobby Brink being moved for Michkov to finally get the look there. Like that seems a little bit questionable at best.
Yeah, I ultimately, and again, I know where Tocchet's coming from on this because, just in terms of being the weak side winger on the play, it's like you're taking, there's a lot of give and take there. Okay, just in terms of covering that side. I mean, so much of the Flyers' defensive system is based upon, everybody covering somebody. Now they've switched for a little bit more man to man. They were pretty much a zone D, playing that box and one system. And by the way, being a little bit more man to man, I think also helps Zegras because in the box and one, the center carries very, very heavy defensive responsibilities.
Yeah.
I think that's part of also why they had him on the wing. because in the box in one, he's helping out both defensemen, so he has to read the play on both sides of the ice, as well as protecting the house in the middle.
Yep.
So that's not what Zegras is great at doing.
Sure.
And if your center is not strong enough defensively, the whole system kind of falls apart, because the center is, everybody's important in the system, but the center is the most important piece. But if you're tweaking that a little bit, then you do have a little bit more opportunity, maybe, to have him in the middle. But I'm over and beyond that. The center is quite often the last guy to leave the defensive zone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like Zegras leading the rush. I like him being the first guy to leave the zone in a lot of cases. But you're not going to do that as a center, okay? And a part also from needing to still improve on face-offs. That's still an ongoing thing. But but if you have a guy like Dvorak out there with him, he can take the left circle face-offs, and they can move. So I don't think that's the be-all and end-all is the face-offs part of it. The third part of it being that I think he needs to still physically get a little bit stronger.
He's gotta fill out.
Because if you have him out on the ice with a guy like a Crosby, maybe Crosby's not the best example, but just physically, he's gonna get manhandled. Yep. He's if you've ever seen somebody trying to lift Crosby's stick, it's like trying to pick up an anvil.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a mismatch when he's out there defensively. That's you're still looking for the bigger, physically strong center at the top of the rotation. But again, that's an ideal world. You can't always go with the ideal. So I still like him as a hybrid, but maybe he can play if he can make that transition to be a full-time center, add a little bit of muscle, make some other adjustments. That solves an issue. That's your 2C right there.
Correct.
Right?
That's
so
that I think is why of all the I've had many issues this year, right?
Yeah.
That to me is probably the one, right? Like the Michkov thing had me annoyed, right? Putting him on the left. I think it's annoying. I think it's also counterintuitive. Like if you're trying to win every game, you're better off having Michkov on the right side as a guy who can actually be a threat and produce points. Is he going to be a good defensive player?
Well,
no. And there's like certainly the argument about on balance.
Yeah.
Is his defensive inability.
But there's another piece to it too.
Yeah.
Once you're in the offensive zone, he's basically positionless, and that's not positionless in a bad way.
Yeah.
But that means he's free to roam. Like he's made plays where he's protected the puck along the wall on the left side, come around the net, and then then he's on the right side.
Yeah.
And if he's trying to make that play from the right side with the puck exposed over the middle, he probably doesn't even get to make that play because he can't protect the puck there. It's easy stick left or easy just to check him off of it. So there's pros and there's cons to it, but when you watch him on the power play, he's definitely, you don't see wheels turning in his head. It's definitely more instinctual when he's on the right side. So that being the case, when you need whatever offense you can get, that's why I'm all in favor of it. But again, I can see why he's on the left. But if he's better on the right, if he's truly more comfortable there and he produces more, do it.
Zegras, the big thing. I have a theory, and I know that no one will admit to it, but I have a little theory.
All right.
Okay. I know that Taka does not believe in Zegras as a 200-foot player.
Yeah.
I don't think there really is anybody who believes that Zegras is a 200-foot player. They are still actively trying to negotiate a deal for Trevor Zegras.
Yeah.
If Trevor Zegras is a center, Trevor Zegras costs more money than if he's a wing. And I've had this thought just kind of playing in the back of my mind. In the midst of negotiating this year, trying to figure out what kind of player he is. Well, if you're playing Zegras at wing, and even if he's a point per game guy, which he was for a good chunk of the season, right?
Yes.
The cost of that is still pretty decently lower than if he's a point per game guy as a center.
Yeah.
So I've had this thought, right? But now you have to figure out. Like I think now you're kind of at that point where even if you were being cute, and I'm not saying they were, but maybe, like, I don't even blame them if they were trying to be cute for negotiating leverage. Now is the point where you actually do have to determine, can he play center? Can he play center under this coach and with these guys? And if he can, it fixes a huge issue. Like you're not giving up a single asset, right?
Yeah.
To me, I think you can make the case that Zegras playing center from now until the end of the year and figuring out what you have there is probably the most important thing going for the team right now. Michkov will bounce back next year. I'm not worried about that. I think Zegras figuring out like what he is at center is probably priority number one or pretty close to it.
Yeah, and I think, but I do think Trevor has changed his tune a little bit. I think he actually has liked playing wing.
Yeah.
You know, but that all being said, for the organization, what would be best? What would be a best case scenario? The best case scenario would be if he can work out as a full-time center, because again, that's a big need right there. Yeah, I mean, perhaps nothing to look the rest of the season, and if he goes back to playing a hybrid kind of a role, fine, right? But yeah, but look at it.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I'm trying to think to myself here, Bill. You know, when you get to the end of the season, I think there's always there's a small part of you that is like a hockey fan. You're sad to see it end, especially when the playoffs are once again not happening. I think this year's actually a little bit more frustrating in that, like, I wouldn't go all the way back to the fake playoff run, the torts here, the benching Couturier thing.
Yeah.
But like the first half of the year, this team was humming. A lot of that was because Dan Vladar played out of his mind. Like he was their MVP. And I would argue he probably still is their MVP this year, right? But they played well beyond, I think, what the actual talent level was on this team. And it felt almost like it was a foregone conclusion. They're going to be in this thing. The East has been so wide open all year that it felt almost like there's no chance they don't. To, I think, have gotten to a place where there was so much excitement around it. And it did feel like, even if you're somebody like me who looks and goes, hey, there's not a lot of top end talent, this is probably not the best thing. There was that taste. It felt like the energy was coming back to the building. The crowds were starting to like believe they would have to go on an almost divine intervention run to close out the season.
January killed them. Yeah.
How, like, what's the thing that you're looking for that would theoretically give you that confidence going into the offseason? All right, they got this thing figured out. Build on that for next year. What are you looking for?
One thing I'm looking at, and we mentioned Drysdale, they really need a PP1 quarterback, some guy to run the thing out there. They don't have that. That's a huge thing. They've been really since Mark Streit before the pelvic plate tear. But before that, that's the last time they had a true power play quarterback out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Ghost did it for a while too.
Yeah.
But they have, it's something they've lacked, and that I think has been the biggest piece.
Can I interest you in a David Juracek?
If he could be that player, yeah. And has a ton of work to do.
Yeah.
But another guy. Take a look at him, especially in light of the fact that we have to deal with a waiver situation.
Yeah, can you explain to the people, because we're going to have to sign off here shortly, but I don't think everybody caught this, and you certainly did.
Yeah, because of his drafting age, and when he debuted in the league and whatever. So, situation where if you want to send him back to the Phantoms next season, you got to get him through waivers. So he's either in your NHL roster or you risk waivers on him, and you don't want to risk waivers.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Why would they? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
it's almost a foregone conclusion in that, right?
You take him in your NHL roster, right?
Yeah.
So, and you really want to see what you have. So, I mean, he's got a ton of development to do. You're hoping that Todd Reardon can work some magic with him. He has with other players. So that's
is he up before the end of the year?
I think he is.
Yeah. So that's a guy to keep an eye on. Yeah. All right. Big thank you to Bill Meltzer for coming on out. Big thank you to everybody here at Chickies and Pete's in Bordentown, New Jersey. Don't forget, we'll be back Wednesday night, next Wednesday at Chickies and Pete's, I believe in Northeast Philly. We'll put it out on social. We're in Northeast Philly. So come on out next Wednesday. We're back in the building on Saturday. Press Row Show, Flyers game on Saturday. Join us at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Find us over on YouTube, Facebook, and X, Snow the Goalie. And if you like listening in the podcast feed, you can find us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. For Bill, for Chris, for intern Andrew, for Bundy, for Anthony. I'm Russ. Thanks for joining us here on Snow the Goalie. Have a great night, everybody.